The human's blood painted the crystal floors of the conclave in arterial sprays, but he refused to fall. Queen Seleraine of the Voskai Empire gripped the armrest of her observation throne so hard the metal warped beneath her six-fingered hands. Around her, representatives from 47 star systems watched in horrified silence as the lone figure below deflected another barrage of plasma fire with nothing but a damaged energy shield and impossible reflexes. "He should be dead," whispered Ambassador Krell from the Thuvian Collective, his translator barely functioning through his shock. 17 kill teams. 17 heads. How is he still standing? Seleraine didn't answer. She couldn't. Her hearts, all three of them, hammered against her ribcage in a rhythm she'd never experienced in her 200 cycles of life. The human's name was Marcus Chen, and 12 hours ago he'd walked into the Grand Conclave alone, unarmed, and requested asylum for his entire species. The request had been denied. Then the shooting started. Not from him, never from him. The first shot came from the Kaltorn delegation, their hatred of humanity well documented since the border skirmishes. Marcus had moved before Seleraine's mind could process the weapon's discharge, throwing himself in front of a young Kaltorn aide who'd been standing in the crossfire. He'd taken the plasma bolt in the shoulder, pulled the terrified youngling to safety, and only then had he armed himself with a fallen guard's weapon. That was 4 hours ago. Since then, the Conclave had transformed into a war zone. Majesty, her chief advisor, Vencor, leaned close, his voice urgent. "We must evacuate. This is beyond protocol." "The human is clearly winning," Seleraine interrupted, her eyes never leaving the carnage below. "Against impossible odds, he is winning." It was true. Marcus Chen moved through the conclave chamber like water through cracks in stone. Fluid, inevitable, unstoppable. He'd somehow identified every hostile element in the massive assembly, neutralizing threats while simultaneously protecting non-combatants. A Xerian warrior, augmented with combat implants and standing twice Marcus's height, lunged from behind a fallen column. The human spun, fired once, and the warrior's shield generator exploded. A second shot took out his weapon. A third, delivered with surgical precision, struck the warrior's knee joint, dropping him alive but incapacitated. No kill shots. In 4 hours of continuous combat, Marcus Chen hadn't killed anyone. "He's corralling them," Seleraine realized aloud, her tactical mind finally understanding the pattern. Every move, every shot, he's driving the aggressors toward the eastern galleries. The blast-proof diplomatic vaults. "Majesty, he's trying to contain the violence, not escalate it." Another wave of attackers emerged. Drath mercenaries, their exoskeletons gleaming with military-grade armor. Marcus didn't hesitate. He vaulted over a shattered information kiosk, sliding beneath a stream of caustic projectiles that would have dissolved his flesh in seconds. His shield flickered, failing, and Seleraine's primary heart actually skipped a beat. She leaned forward, the words "no" forming on her lips before she could stop them. But Marcus had already moved. He used the kiosk's polished surface as a mirror, firing blind over his shoulder with impossible accuracy. 3 shots. 3 Drath mercenaries suddenly found their weapons malfunctioning, their armor's joint servos freezing. They collapsed in a tangle of metal and curses. "By the ancestors," Ambassador Yuri from the Centauri Coalition breathed. "He's fighting an army using architecture." Seleraine's military advisors had begun calculating, their holographic displays flickering with data. "Majesty, our projections show he's analyzed 17 different species combat doctrines in real time. He's adapting faster than our tactical computers." "That's impossible," someone murmured. "Clearly not," Seleraine countered. Marcus stumbled, finally, a grazing shot catching his thigh. Blood streamed down his leg, so much blood. But he converted the fall into a roll, coming up behind a support pillar. For the first time since the battle began, he paused. Breathing hard, clearly in agony, he checked something on his wrist display. Then he looked up, directly at the observation gallery, directly at Seleraine. Their eyes met across the chaos and smoke. His were brown. She remembered that detail from the asylum hearing, had catalogued it among the countless other observations she'd made of humanity's lone representative. Brown eyes, unremarkable among his species. But there was nothing unremarkable about the intelligence burning in them now, the desperate determination, the quiet plea. He mouthed 2 words. "Help them. Help them." Seleraine followed his gaze to the eastern galleries, where nearly 100 non-combatant delegates had taken shelter, protected by the very aggressors Marcus had herded into defensive positions. The attackers, thinking themselves strategic, had unknowingly become shields for the innocent. He planned this. Sellarane whispered. "Every movement, every shot, he's been protecting us all along." A new sound cut through the chamber, the distinctive whine of orbital drop pods breaching the Conclave's shields. On every view screen, the same image appeared. Warships from 20 different systems, all descending, all targeting the Conclave. "They're not here to help," Venkor said grimly. "They're here to finish what started." Marcus Chen stood, his damaged leg barely supporting him. He dropped his weapon, raised his hands, and walked into the center of the chamber. Blood dripped with each step. His shield was gone. He was utterly defenseless. And he smiled. "I invoke the Covenant of Shields," his voice rang out, amplified by the Conclave's systems. "Ancient right, never revoked. A single warrior stands between the innocent and harm. If I fall, so falls your honor. Every species here witnessed it. Every record captured it." The Covenant of Shields hadn't been invoked in 3,000 cycles, a relic from the Conclave's founding, created to prevent the strong from overwhelming the weak through pure numbers. It was symbolic, ceremonial, practically forgotten. But it was still law. If he dies, Ambassador Krell realized, every species that fired upon him today becomes Oathbreaker. Outcasts. Forbidden from all alliances, all trade, all protection under Conclave law. Marcus swayed, his blood pooling on crystal floors. The descending warships held position, unable to fire without damning their entire civilizations. And Sellarane made her choice. She stood, her royal presence commanding instant silence. Her voice carried the weight of 40 generations of rulers. "The Covenant is recognized. Stand down immediately or face extinction through law rather than war, then war." The human's legs finally gave out. As he fell, Sellarane was already moving, her guards struggling to keep pace as she descended to the chamber floor faster than protocol allowed. She reached him as his eyes began to close, cradling his head with a gentleness that surprised even her. "Why?" she demanded. "Why sacrifice yourself for species that voted to abandon yours?" Marcus's lips curved slightly. "Because someone had to show you. We're worth saving." His hand trembled, reaching into his jacket. Guards tensed, weapons raised, but Sellarane waved them back. Marcus withdrew a data crystal, pressing it into her palm. "Proof," he whispered. "The border skirmishes. Humans weren't the aggressors. We took the blame to prevent total war. This. Everything." His eyes closed. "Medical teams, now," Sellarane commanded, but she was already seeing the chamber differently. Seeing the careful distribution of injured attackers, positioned to ensure rescue teams could reach everyone efficiently. Seeing the preserved evidence terminals protected from damage throughout the battle. Seeing the impossible plan of a man who'd known he couldn't win by fighting, only by enduring. The data crystal contained everything. Communications records, tactical analyses, testimony from 300 witnesses. Humanity hadn't started the border skirmishes. They had ended them, absorbing blame to prevent the Kaltorn from being expelled from the Conclave, knowing it would cost them everything. They'd sacrificed their reputation to prevent wider war. And Marcus Chen had walked into this chamber knowing he might die, armed with nothing but truth and the desperate hope that one person might actually listen. Sellarane's hands shook as medical teams swarmed around the human's broken body. Around the chamber, delegates watched in silence as the full scope of Marcus's strategy became clear. He hadn't fought to win. He'd fought to buy time. Time for the truth to surface. Time for the Covenant to take effect. Time for someone to care enough to ask why. "Will he live?" she asked the chief medical officer. "Unknown, Majesty. His physiology is remarkably resilient, but the damage. Use every resource," Sellarane commanded. "Every technology, every expert. I don't care what it costs. Because somewhere in the chaos, between watching him protect people who'd condemned his species and seeing him invoke ancient law to shield the innocent, something in Sellarane had changed. Her heart's beat in a pattern she couldn't explain, wouldn't dare name. But as medical teams rushed Marcus away, as the chamber slowly emptied, and the weight of what had transpired settled over 47 star systems, Queen Sellarane of the Voskai Empire stood alone on blood-stained crystal floors. If Marcus Chen survived, she would spend however long it took to understand the species that could produce such a warrior. And if he didn't, she would ensure his sacrifice meant everything. The warships began their retreat. The Conclave fell silent. And in the medical wing, machines began the delicate work of saving a human life while an alien queen waited, her 3 hearts racing with something that felt remarkably like hope. 3 days passed in a blur of emergency sessions and heated debates. Sellarane attended none of them. She remained at Marcus's bedside, watching alien medical technology fight to repair damage that should have killed him 10 times over. The data crystal's contents had been verified, authenticated by 17 independent analysis teams. The truth was spreading across known space like wildfire. Humanity had taken the blame for a war they didn't start. The political implications were catastrophic. 3 governments had already collapsed. The Kalthorn Empire faced complete restructuring. Ambassador Krell had personally apologized to Empty Air, knowing no human representatives were present to hear it. But Sellarane only cared about the man in the medical pod, his chest rising and falling with mechanical assistance, his body wrapped in regenerative fields that glowed soft blue in the dimmed chamber. "You should rest, Majesty," Vancor suggested from the doorway. "There are decisions requiring your attention." "They can wait," Sellarane replied, not looking away from Marcus. "The human vessel is approaching Conclave space. They've requested permission to retrieve their..."
"Delegate."
"How many ships?" "1. A small diplomatic courier, no weapon signatures. Even now, even knowing what had happened, humanity sent 1 ship. No threats. No demands. Just a quiet request for their injured champion. Grant them dock clearance," Sellarane ordered, "and inform them Ambassador Chen is under my personal protection until he wakes." "Majesty, the political ramifications of you personally protecting a human are nothing compared to what he endured protecting everyone else," Sellarane interrupted sharply. "My decision is final." She studied Marcus's face, peaceful now in induced unconsciousness, and tried to reconcile this vulnerable figure with the warrior who'd fought for 4 hours straight. The medical reports detailed 14 separate injuries, any one of which could have been fatal without immediate intervention. His left lung had been punctured, his femoral artery severed, 3 ribs shattered, burns covering 30% of his body. Yet he'd kept fighting, kept protecting, kept moving with purpose and precision until the very moment he'd invoked the Covenant. "Who are you?" Sellarane whispered. "What kind of species produces someone like you?" The door chimed. Sellarane turned, expecting another advisor, another emergency, another crisis, demanding her attention. Instead, 3 humans stood in the entrance, wearing simple gray uniforms marked with Earth's diplomatic insignia. 2 women, 1 man, all watching her with the same unreadable brown eyes that had haunted her thoughts for 3 days. "Your Majesty," the eldest woman spoke, her voice carrying the weight of authority despite her smaller stature. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister. We've come to bring him home." Sellarane felt something tighten in her chest, her primary heart, responding to a threat she didn't understand. "He's not stable enough for transport." "Our medical teams would disagree," Captain Chen replied calmly. "But we're not here to argue. We're here to thank you." She stepped forward, and Sellarane's guards tensed, but the human merely bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Earth's customs. "You saved my brother's life. You stood against your own conclave to honor the Covenant. My people won't forget that." "I did what any honorable leader would do," Sellarane said stiffly. "No," the other woman spoke, younger, her eyes fierce. "You did what Marcus knew only you would do. He studied every delegate for months before walking into that chamber. He chose to invoke the Covenant because he believed he gambled everything on the belief that you would honor it." The words struck Sellarane like physical blows. "He planned for me specifically?" Captain Chen nodded. "Marcus doesn't leave things to chance. He researched your lineage, your military service, your judicial rulings. He found 300 instances where you chose law over convenience, justice over politics, honor over advantage." She met Sellarane's gaze directly. "He bet his life that you'd make it 301. Sellarane felt her legs weaken slightly. She'd thought Marcus's invocation of the Covenant was desperation, a last gamble by a dying man. But it had been calculated, deliberate. He'd walked into that chamber knowing he'd be attacked, knowing he'd be injured, knowing his only hope was if one specific person, her, chose honor over expedience. "That's insane," Sellarane breathed. "The risk is who we are." The third human, the younger man, spoke for the first time. "Humanity doesn't survive by being strongest or fastest. We survive by understanding others better than they understand themselves." "Marcus understood you, Majesty. He trusted you when your own advisors wouldn't." A soft chime interrupted the conversation. The medical pod began cycling through its emergence protocols. Inside, Marcus stirred, his eyes moving beneath closed lids. "He's waking," the medical officer announced, surprise evident in her tone. "Neural activity indicates full consciousness returning." "This is unprecedented for his injury severity." Sellarane moved to the pod without thinking. her guards scrambling to maintain protocol. Marcus's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening with remarkable speed. He saw his sister, managed a weak smile, then his gaze found Selarain. "Your Majesty." His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. Did it work? Such a human question. No concern for his own condition, only for the mission's outcome. "It worked," Selarain confirmed, surprised by the thickness in her own voice. "The truth is known. Your species has been absolved. The Kautorn have admitted to initiating the border skirmishes." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, relief washing over his features. "Good. That's good." "You almost died," Selarain found herself saying, anger suddenly flooding through her. "You walked into that chamber knowing they'd try to kill you. You planned to be nearly murdered." "What kind of strategy is that?" Marcus's lips twitched. "The kind that works when you're betting on someone honorable." He coughed, wincing. Was I wrong? No, he hadn't been wrong, and they both knew it. Selarain had honored the covenant when half her advisors counseled against it. She'd risked political chaos to save his life. She'd stood guard for 3 days while her empire demanded her attention elsewhere, and she'd do it again. "You're going home," Selarain said firmly. "Your sister is here to retrieve you." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Disappointment? Yeah, makes sense. "I'm sure you have a lot of cleanup to handle after my mess." "It wasn't a mess," Selarain countered. "It was the bravest, most foolish, most effective diplomatic action I've witnessed in 2 centuries. "High praise from someone who thought I should be dead 17 different times," Marcus replied. And despite everything, despite the pain and exhaustion evident in every line of his body, he was teasing her. Captain Chen cleared her throat. "Marcus, the decision is yours. You've completed your mission. Earth would welcome you home as a hero." She paused meaningfully. "But if you chose to remain as humanity's formal representative to the Conclave, we'd support that too." Selarain's 3 hearts did something complicated and arrhythmic. Stay. He could stay. Marcus studied his sister's face, reading meanings Selarain couldn't decipher. "Sarah, don't." "I'm not doing anything," Captain Chen replied innocently. "Just presenting options. Although I should mention that several Conclave members have formally requested Earth establish a permanent delegation. Apparently your little performance impressed people." "I nearly died." "You didn't die. There's a difference." Marcus looked at Selarain, really looked at her, and she felt exposed under that gaze. "What do you think, Your Majesty? Should I stay? Or have I caused enough trouble?" She should say leave. She should maintain proper diplomatic distance, avoid complications, protect her political position. Everything logical, everything sensible pointed towards sending him away. "Stay," Selarain heard herself say. "Please." The word hung in the air between them, heavier than protocol, more significant than politics. Marcus's eyes widened slightly, searching her face for something she didn't know how to name. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll stay. Then we'll leave you to rest. Majesty, we'll coordinate with your staff regarding formal delegation procedures." She leaned down, kissed her brother's forehead. "Don't do anything stupid." "Too late for that," Marcus murmured, but his attention remained fixed on Selarain. The other humans departed, leaving them alone with just the medical officers, who sensibly found reasons to check equipment in the far corner. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but weighted with everything unsaid. "Why did you really stay?" Selarain asked quietly. Marcus considered the question with his characteristic thoroughness. "Because there's more work to do. The truth is out, but understanding? That takes time. Humanity needs someone here who can keep building bridges." He paused. "And because when I was bleeding out on those crystal floors, you weren't just honoring the covenant, you were afraid." "For me." I saw it. Heat flooded Selarain's face, a Voskai physiological response to emotional exposure. "I barely knew you." Which makes it more significant, not less. He shifted in the medical pod, trying to sit up. Selarain moved automatically, helping him adjust despite the medical officer's protests. "I researched you for months, Majesty. I know you're brilliant, principled, occasionally terrifying in negotiations, but seeing you run across that chamber floor, protocol completely abandoned, just to reach me?" He met her eyes. "That told me something research never could."
"What did it tell you?"
Selarain asked, though part of her feared the answer. "That maybe you felt it too. That thing that happened when our eyes met during the asylum hearing. Before the shooting, before everything. You felt it, right? Should maintain professional distance. Should remember that she was a queen, he was a delegate, and personal feelings had no place in interstellar politics. I felt it, Sellarane admitted, the words escaping before wisdom could stop them. I thought I imagined it, not imagined, Marcus said softly. Definitely not imagined. He reached out carefully, and after a moment's hesitation, Sellarane took his hand. His skin was warm, humans ran hotter than Voskai. She knew that intellectually, but feeling it was different. His fingers were smaller than hers, lacking her extra digit, but they fit together in a way that made her 3 hearts beat in sudden synchronization. This is complicated, she pointed out, though she didn't release his hand. I excel at complicated, Marcus replied. Kind of my specialty. Your specialty is nearly dying for political effect. See? You already know me so well. Despite herself, despite everything, Sellarane laughed. It surprised her. That sound emerging from a place that had been carefully locked away since she'd assumed the throne. Queens didn't laugh freely. They didn't hold hands with delegates. They didn't feel their hearts race because someone looked at them like they mattered beyond their crown. But Marcus Chen had walked into almost certain death trusting her honor. He'd bled on crystal floors protecting species that had condemned his own. He'd invoked ancient law and smiled through agony and somehow, impossibly, made her believe that one person could change everything. Maybe it was time to trust him one more time. If you're staying, Sellarane said carefully, there will be protocols, formal arrangements. You'll need proper quarters in the diplomatic sector, security details, staff. I'll need access to you, Marcus interrupted. Not as a queen. As Sellarane, because I didn't stay for the politics. Ooh. His thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. I stayed because when you said please, I heard something in your voice that matched what I was feeling. And I'm really hoping I'm not misreading this situation. You're not, Sellarane confirmed, her voice steadier than she felt. But I should warn you, I have 3 hearts. When a Voskai forms an attachment, it's intense, complicated. I like complicated, remember? The medical officer coughed diplomatically from across the room. Ambassador Chen should rest. His injuries are healing faster than you predicted, Marcus finished. Human resilience were annoying that way, but he was already looking tired, the brief surge of energy fading. Rain check on this conversation? Sellarane blinked at the idiom. Humans had so many strange expressions, then understood. Yes, rest. We'll continue this when you're stronger. Promise? Such a simple word, but weighted with significance. Sellarane squeezed his hand gently. Promise. Marcus's eyes drifted closed, but his hand remained in hers, steady and warm. Around them, the medical equipment hummed, maintaining watch over impossible healing. Outside, the conclave prepared for humanity's formal delegation for the political restructuring Marcus's actions had triggered for a future none of them had anticipated 3 days ago. But in this quiet room, Sellarane allowed herself to simply exist. Not as a queen, not as a politician, not as the face of an empire, just as herself, holding the hand of someone brave and foolish and extraordinary, feeling her 3 hearts beat in a rhythm she'd never experienced before. It was terrifying. It was inappropriate. It violated at least 17 protocols she could think of immediately, and she wouldn't trade it for anything.